Hello and welcome everybody to this web class hosted by Insurance WebEx Insider. Today's topic is on communication skills, the key to getting more and better clients in any economy, presented by Bill Bachrach. You've probably read Bill's bio. However, just as a quick refresher of a couple of highlights, Bill is a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, a 9-time presenter at Million Dollar Roundtable and Top of the Table annual meetings, an effective workshop leader, and by far the highest paid coach for financial advisors in the world. His latest resource is the Advisor Roadmap. It's a virtual training platform that makes everything a financial professional needs to learn about client acquisition, client service, leadership, and time management, available 24/7 on your computer, your laptop, tablet, mobile phone for an extremely affordable price. He's also an industry best-selling author and philanthropist. In his free time, Bill likes to go to interesting places with his wife Anne, doing challenging bike rides in Europe, and even heli skiing in British Columbia. Welcome, Bill. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for that nice introduction. I appreciate that. Another one of my favorite things to do is to do a webinar like this and to work with you to help you master your communication skills so that you can elevate the experience for your clients as well as grow your business. Have you ever wondered why some advisors are enormously successful and others wash out of the business or languish in mediocrity? Maybe you've pondered that question. Maybe that's one of the reasons you decided to join our webinar today. So why is it that this veteran advisor was able to motivate an existing client to transfer $3.5 million of assets from another advisor to him? How did this financial advisor break through her limiting beliefs that she would spend her entire career working with people with $500,000 to having the confidence to acquire clients with millions, like the foundation with $12 million who gave it all to her to manage, even though she had no experience working with foundations and her competitors were more technically competent and experienced in this area than she was? Why does this man from Scottsdale, Arizona, how's he able to get clients to pay him $100,000 a year for financial advice, completely separate from money management? How does a veteran financial advisor like Mark go from $388,000 of commission revenue to $1.6 million of fee-based recurring revenue in only 34 months, smack in the middle of a terrible economy? Why was Carrie able to inspire an existing client with multiple advisors to transfer $8 million from one of those advisors to him? What's the secret of this 29-year-old financial advisor adding 10 ideal clients in just 10 months who pay his $36,000 flat annual fee? How does an introverted accountant like Don transform himself from a bad accounting business preparing tax returns for an hourly rate to $225 million of assets under management, $2 million of recurring revenue, and $1 million of personal income in just a few short years? Why was this veteran financial advisor able to add 36 ideal clients and $672,000 of recurring revenue to an already successful business in less than 3 years? So one of the things to consider is, do these people have better technical skills? Do they have a higher IQ? Do they have more or better designations? I mean, think about the alphabet soup potential. And I don't think I captured all of the designations that are available in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and some of the other countries like South Africa where we work with advisors. I mean, think about, you could be in class 24/7 to get all those designations. Do the top advisors have better technology? Do they have better products or better investment performance? Do they care more or provide better service? Well, what gives all of these advisors their competitive advantage is pretty simple. The answer is that they have great people and communication skills, and none of them were born with these skills. Technical skills, great service, and caring, well, those are just table stakes, not a competitive advantage. These advisors apply their people and communication skills in their marketing and business development. They apply them in their client service. They apply them in their leadership. They apply them across the board, and this is why they are so successful. And the great news is that you can do the same to tap your true potential. And we all have some untapped potential, right? Now, these are often called the soft skills. People and communication skills are the key to success. I appreciate the distinction that hard skills are more the technical things, but I sort of find it interesting. I think it's the soft skills that really deliver, the hard cash and help you be really successful. The best financial advisors have always been great communicators. And in today's highly competitive and very disrupted financial services industry, the people and communication skills truly are the best way to have a competitive advantage, to retain your best clients and also to rescue clients from other advisors. Now, how do you get great people skills? Well, there really is no shortcut. It's just a function of practice. So we can have a discussion today about great people skills on this webinar, but if you're serious about being a brilliant communicator, I'm sure you realize that you're going to have to do more than just sit in front of your computer for an hour and listen to me talk. So read along with me as I build this slide on the screen, because this is the fact about being a financial advisor who's really dedicated to growing your business. Your future clients are people with money who are currently doing business with other advisors and institutions. In order to grow your business, you're going to have to do something compelling to get them to talk to you in the first place, and then hire you, and effectively firing their other advisors and institutions. If you're really honest with yourself, this is what you want, right? This is what you want, and this is your job. Essentially, what you're describing is the ability to talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Regardless of how you prospect, market, and generate leads, at some point, you're going to have to talk to another human being on the phone, online, face-to-face, or all of the above. So essentially, what we're describing here is the hallmark of great people and communication skills. So just take a moment and read the text on the slide. So if you've been in this business more than about 20 minutes, you know that this is a trust business, right? And everyone has embedded in their subconscious an imaginary trust dial. And everything you say and do moves the needle on the trust dial one direction or the other. The ability to build trust is your most important people and communication skill. There are essentially two parts to communication skills that win clients and help you retain your best clients. So how do you think these two elements should be divided? So one part is how effectively you ask questions and listen, and the other part is the talking and presenting part. So how do you think they should be divided? And if you recorded most advisors' prospect or client communications, how do you think they're actually divided? I doubt that it will surprise you that most advisors talk too much, and I can totally understand why you might be reluctant to record your prospect and client meetings and listen to them. On the one hand, it'll help you become a brilliant communicator, and on the other hand, you can imagine that's a painful exercise. And so, what about this? I mean, should it be more like this? Should you do less questioning and listening and more talking and presenting? What do you think? A small amount of listening and lots of you talking? Is the great communicator someone who doesn't need to do much listening? Are they glib and gregarious? Are they persuasive salespeople, the proverbial smooth talker? Well, I certainly don't think that's the case, and I doubt that you do either. A friend of mine was recently interviewing financial advisors, and she was referred to several and contacted them all by phone to start the process. And I think just to entertain me, she told me the story about one of the financial advisors. The conversation actually started out pretty well. The advisor began by saying, well, the first thing we want to do is really get to know you. So we're going to ask you a lot of questions. I mean, that sounds pretty good, right? And then he continued, but before we do that, let me tell you a little bit about me. And according to my friend, it was literally 45 minutes later, and he was still talking about himself. He had not yet asked her a single question. When he finally took a breath, well, what do you think? Yep, it was too late. No chance to recover. He didn't get hired, and honestly, he probably doesn't have a clue why he didn't get hired. So this is your most important people and communication skill, the ability to ask lots of questions and be a great listener. Much less talking and presenting and a lot more effective asking questions and listening. This is how David Foster, the famous composer, frames it. So just take a moment and read the quote on the screen. I mean, it seems so fundamental, doesn't it? There are a few other fundamentals that all great communicators embrace. The first fundamental won't surprise you. They know the right questions to ask and when to ask them. They're being on purpose. They know the right questions to ask, and there's an order to asking the questions. There's a rhythm. So being a great communicator is part science and part art. And then, of course, honestly, it's really relatively easy to do this part. I mean, you could just have a list of questions and ask them. But think about, would that list of questions be much more effective and compelling in the hands of one advisor over another advisor? And if so, what's the difference? How come one advisor can get a list of questions and be brilliant with them, and another advisor maybe not so much? Well, the key is in fundamental number 2, and that's really listening with empathy. And so we've been doing this. We just a couple of weeks ago celebrated our 29th anniversary of training financial advisors, and I was a successful financial advisor before that. And, you know, like you, I've interacted with a lot of financial advisors. And what seems to drive the ability to listen with empathy is actually having a genuine interest in other people. And that may be innate. You know, if you're not actually interested in other people, what's important to them, what matters to them, what they care about, etc., you know, I'm not sure that listening with empathy, if you don't have the innate sort of genuine caring about what matters to other people, you know, in you, it's probably going to be hard to listen with empathy. So this is really what separates some advisors who are ineffective with a great list of questions and others who are brilliant. And then, of course, at some point, it is your turn to talk. At some point, you have to put your offer on the table. You've got to be able to answer their questions. So when it is your turn to talk, it's a people and a communication skill to be able to articulate your ideas and give your advice with conviction so your clients and your prospects respond positively and implement. Now, how do you know? I mean, it's sort of a challenge to know, well, yeah, that's what you want to do. So how do you know if you're any good at that? Well, the best advisors actually record their meetings with prospects and clients to learn the truth about how well they ask questions, listen with empathy, and articulate their ideas with conviction. So just to sort of anticipate your question about this, yes, it's painful, right? But just like professional athletes watch video of practice and games to get better, you can benefit from the same fundamental approach. So here's a simple script that's proven to be very effective. And just to clarify, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to go through this webinar again. You know, you can watch a movie a second or third time and see things you didn't see the first time through. You'll be able to pause it. So for example, we're just about 15 minutes into the webinar. You could mark this time and fast forward to this place. If you like the script I'm about to share, that's one way that you can write it down, and then of course you can use it in the real world. All right, so here's the script. In addition to asking lots of questions and taking copious notes, we're going to record our meeting today. The reason we do that is because we're very thorough. Do you know how you can watch a movie a second or third time and see things you didn't see the first time through? And you pause for their response. And I've been doing this for decades. Thousands of financial advisors have implemented this script. And when you pause there, people nod and smile because they know exactly what you mean. After you have given them an opportunity to respond, you continue, well, your financial life is much more important than a movie. So should we decide to work together, my team and I will listen to this recording at least once more to make sure our advice is just right for you. And then you ask your first question. So what do you think? What do you think about the direction the needle moved on the trust dial? So if you opened your next client meeting, either with an existing client or a prospective client, and followed that script I just shared, what happens to your credibility? Does it go up, or does it go down, or does it stay the same? Well, if you answered, well, I think it went up, you are correct. If you have, when you introduce something like that that is behavioral, so you can't just show up and say, well, we really care. I mean, that's just not believable. But when you behave in a way that's more thorough, that illustrates that you really want to get it right. When you go beyond what most financial advisors are doing, they're just taking notes on a yellow pad, and you're actually using, I mean, it's already built into your iPhone or your Android. There's already a recording device right there. In the old days, we used to use physical cassette recorders, then we graduated to digital recorders, and now there's a built-in app that comes free on your phone, and for $1 to $5, you can buy even more sophisticated recording apps. All right, so I'll just pause for a moment there and remind you that we will be taking questions at the end of the webinar. So if you have a question, you just go to the GoToWebinar control panel and ask your question, and I'll answer the questions in the order that they are received. So professional athletes are so serious about that, about watching film and examining. They watch film of their practice, they watch film of their games. I mean, this is automatically what professionals do. I mean, it's so important that they even have dedicated rooms. They call it the film room. So even though it may all be digital and there isn't actually film, that's still what they call it. So when you listen to your recordings, ask these two questions while you're listening to the recording. Question number one, what are two things I did well? I mean, I totally get the tendencies to be your own worst critic, and you tend to want to beat yourself up for, man, if I could go back, I would have said this differently, or I talked too much here, or I interrupted him there, and, you know, I think that she had more to say, but, you know, she just paused for a moment and I jumped in, you know, so it's so easy to be your own worst critic. But take a moment, because just the very fact that you're willing to record your interviews, the very fact that you chose to be on a webinar about improving your communication skills, you know, indicates that you're probably already at least somewhat of a good communicator, and your desire to get better speaks volumes about how much you care about helping your clients and how serious you are about growing your business. So give yourself a break. Focus on things that you do well, and then also ask yourself, what's one thing I could do to improve? So notice the ratio. Your goal is to find more things you're doing well than more things you can do to improve. Right? So it's painful enough to listen to recordings of yourself, but it doesn't take long to get used to the sound of your voice. I know it's tough when you first listen, you go, I don't really sound like that. Well, that's how you sound to others. Right? So your voice sounds different to you because it's traveling through the bones in your head to get to your ear, but it doesn't do that with others. It comes out of your mouth and it goes straight into their ears. So how important would it be to actually understand how you sound to others when you're in such a crucial business where how you sound and interact with others is vital to your success? So Will Smith puts it this way. Just take a moment and read the quote on the screen. So I think what he's really saying here is that you don't need the highest IQ. You don't need to be the best technical expert in any area of finance. You don't need to be the most brilliant leader. You simply have to prepare for and execute some key human interactions. And that's what we're going to talk about next. But first, we're going to cover the last fundamental. So you want to be brilliantly effective at this, not just at delivering the words, but with the right tonality, the right facial expressions, and with what we call a totally trustworthy way of being. You know how sometimes you just get a feeling about someone, sometimes you feel very quickly like you can trust them, and other times, even with very little data or information that they're not trustworthy, you can get the opposite feelings. So that's why the best communicators use scripts. It may appear that they're glib, spontaneous, and off the cuff, but nothing could be farther from the truth. They've simply memorized their scripts so thoroughly that nobody can tell they're scripted. Now, if you sound canned or scripted, it simply means you need more practice. So you're going to, when you first get started, you might feel a little awkward with your questions. You might want to interrupt. You might just need more practice so that you get really, really good at engaging with people where ultimately you're no longer reading it off the inside of your forehead. You're actually just naturally communicating that way. It was mentioned in my introduction that I'm in this very interesting small group in the Hall of Fame of professional speakers, and it took a long time of giving literally thousands of presentations, which of course were scripted. And so the slides were there, the content was prepared, and the more that I did it, the more effective I got at it. And even things that were, I'd said 1,000 times, the key is to know what you're going to say, but that it comes across as just fresh and interesting every single time. So if you sound canned or scripted, it simply means that you need more practice. So let's talk about how you build your script binder. Essentially, your script binder is the equivalent of the professional athlete's playbook. You have to know the plays and be able to execute in the real world, especially under pressure. And unfortunately, you can't really go into face-to-face meetings with your scripts in front of you like the quarterback has all the plays on that clever little device that's attached to their wrist. But you can use your scripts when you're on the phone or doing online meetings. You can have your scripts, your talking points. You can have some sort of cheat notes, for lack of a better word. All right, so you have to know the plays and you have to be able to execute in the real world, especially under pressure. Do you know what it's like when you have a meeting with someone who doesn't have a lot of money, and in your head you're thinking, well, I'm pretty relaxed. I'd like to get this person as a client, but the consequences of them not becoming a client aren't that big of a deal. So on the other hand, you know what it's like when you go into a meeting with somebody who's more financially successful, like Debbie used to feel like she was going to have to spend her whole career working with people who had $500,000 because she just didn't have the skill and confidence to engage with people who had millions. While she worked at it, she developed that skill and confidence. So you know what it's like when you're going into a meeting where the consequences of success and failure are bigger. If someone has millions of dollars, if they're highly connected in the community and could be a great referral source, that feeling where your mouth gets a little dry and your heart beats a little faster and maybe your palms get a little moist. Well, the goal is to be so skilled and confident with your communication and people skills that it doesn't really matter how much is on the line. You're just as relaxed and confident. And the way that you do that is to have a written script for every situation where what you say and how you say it matters, and they're arranged in some logical orders. So for example, your client service scripts would come ahead, your client acquisition scripts would come ahead of your client service scripts in your binder. It just makes sense that they would be in logical order. So your client acquisition scripts would be first, your client interview scripts would be next, the scripts with your answers to the frequently asked questions when you put your offer on the table, they would be next. Right? So the most successful financial advisors have a script binder arranged in logical order, and they are mastering that. It's always a work in progress. It's unlikely that it will ever be sort of perfect or complete, because as you interact with more people, listen to your recordings, you just learn things to get better, just like the professional athlete is always refining and tweaking. There is no perfect communicator. Perfection is your goal, but you'll be happy with excellence and great results. And success is fundamentally knowing what to say and do, and then spending most of your time out in the world saying and doing it. So for example, chances are someone who's dumber than you are technically, but who's more successful. There's a pretty good chance that the reason they're more successful is you may spend more time working on your technical skills while they spend more time actually prospecting and marketing and acquiring new ideal clients. Therefore, their communication skills get better and better. So here's another way of looking at this. I like to say that success always begins with a list, right? So through our virtual training platform and some of the face-to-face training and coaching that we've done for many years, we always coach advisors to say, all right, let's start with a list. So let's first talk about upgrading your existing clients to ideal clients, and let's also work through, sort of look at it like, first of all, start with the low-hanging fruit before you invest in and deploy a more sort of cold marketing strategy. So think about your list. You've got existing clients, you've got prospects in your database, and then you have new prospects from client acquisition activities, especially referrals. So you have to have a list of people to talk to, and then of course knowing what to say, knowing how to say it, and knowing when to say it, effectively using your script binder, gives you more skill and confidence when you're actually engaging with people. So those are essentially the fundamentals, if you will, of communication skills. Now let's explore the application. So there are crucial moments where your people and communication skills really pay off. So let's walk through these crucial moments. And again, if you have any questions as we go, just load your questions up in the queue, and in about 15 minutes or so, I'll open it up to Q&A. I always leave a little cushion after the webinar so that I can be available if you have more questions than the time allows. It's one of those variables that we can't plan exactly for, but I'm happy to stay on and answer all of your questions. So this is sort of a scary picture. So just take a moment and sort of let that sink in, because this really illustrates the biggest mistake financial advisors make when entering these crucial moments with prospects and clients. You can't view the world through your asset glasses and expect to build good relationships. One of my friends says, when you treat people like your meal ticket, they feel like food. All right, so regardless of your mechanisms for generating leads and prospecting and marketing, when you interact with people at any stage in the process of them becoming a client, as soon as they sort of feel like just another account number or just feel like food, that breaks trust. So if you think about it and reflect on all your current clients and start considering your future clients, every one of your clients at some point is or was a stranger, right? You didn't know them. So how do you engage a person or couple in any situation or environment in a way that inspires them to want to talk to you again without ever coming across like a schmucky financial salesperson who's just trolling for business? So the pictures on your screen illustrate that you meet people. You meet people at dinner parties, you meet people on airplanes, you meet people when you're participating in your favorite activities. Last Wednesday, for example, there were just 3 of us out for a round of golf on the south course of Torrey Pines. And the single who joined us was a very sharp ER doc named Jordan. So what if you'd been part of our group? Would you have been able to engage Jordan in interesting conversation so he would want to speak with you again without ruining his round of golf by making him feel like a piece of financial meat? The other thing that you can do, and this is probably still the best form of ideal client acquisition, is you can strategically attend charity events where you know there will be financially successful people. Sort of in marketing vernacular, this is called a target-rich environment. Right? But when you show up there, you have to have the people skills. The people skills are the art form that make the difference between handing out business cards and actually generating appointments from being there. Now, the same can be true at a business networking meeting, right? You can strategically place yourself in the flow of business and monetize these activities better than any form of business development, especially if your goal is to add ideal clients and not just any clients. So I see a lot of advisors who are trying sort of to avoid talking to other human beings. They sort of go down this path, and for many of them, most of them are unsuccessful at trying to generate leads. How do I get people to contact me through, LinkedIn or through Facebook or through some kind of search engine optimization? And even if you're successful at making the connection, you're going to have to talk to them. At some point, you're going to have to talk to them. And written communication is just as important as verbal communication, right? So if you're going to engage them through some kind of chat, or texting or talking to them through LinkedIn, you have to be just as effective. The same rules apply. You have to be good at asking questions, right? So you have to be good at hearing what they say. And the quicker you can move any type of an internet lead that's generated to a phone or online, a verbal conversation or a face-to-face meeting, the more rapidly you're moving down the path to building that trust and moving them to being a client. So unfortunately, too many people in our industry show up and talk too much instead of listening. Talk about themselves, talk about their credentials, talk about their background, talk about how great their company is, blah, blah, blah. And perhaps one of the most ineffective ideas ever perpetuated in our industry is the elevator pitch. The idea of the elevator pitch is that you say something so unique and clever that people want to talk to you about becoming your client. Can you envision that? You just say the magic words and prospects clamor for your business card. I mean, it's so alluring that I've been guilty of wanting to believe this is possible myself. However, I've come to recognize that the key to engaging people, especially wealthy people who have lots of experience with financial advisors and institutions, is to ask great questions, especially in that first 30 seconds, even if you were actually riding an elevator. This is based on a universal truth. People would rather talk about themselves than listen to other people talk. Even as a cold calling rookie 30 plus years ago, I remember that nobody hung up the phone while they were talking. And the same is true in person. People don't become bored talking with you when they are talking. People don't perceive you as just another typical financial advisor while they are talking. People don't conclude that they already have all their financial affairs taken care of while they are talking. People don't become disinterested in speaking with you while they are talking. So what do you do? I mean, if you literally have that proverbial 30 seconds in the elevator with someone who could become your next ideal client, or more likely when you meet someone at a cocktail party or at a fundraiser, you ask a great question that gets them talking about something that is meaningful, important, significant, and compelling to them. So imagine 30 seconds later, the elevator doors open. And if they are still talking as you step out of the elevator together, there's a high probability they would like to continue talking to you. Therefore, they will be much more receptive to your offer to continue the conversation and eventually to your offer to take the next step in the journey of becoming your next ideal client. So while this may seem self-evident, very few financial advisors develop this skill. Every once in a while, I have an advisor who will hear me talk about this content at some type of a live workshop, or if I'm giving a keynote speech, and they'll come to me with confidence about, yep, Bill, you're absolutely right. Sort of instead of learning anything from what I'm saying, they feel like everything I've said just confirms how great they are. So I ask a lot of questions. I'm really good at this. I do more listening than talking. And I said, boy, that's fantastic. I'm in the business of helping advisors be better communicators, elevate their client value, grow their businesses, especially with ideal clients. And I have a virtual training platform for that. We do live coaching as well. And, I always love to share an example of a real advisor who's great at this. So how about this? Would you be willing to record your next meeting with a client or your next meeting with a prospect, and then send that recording to me? Of course, we'll redact any personal information. I won't say who you are specifically. They're not going to know your voice. And would you do that for me so I can play it as an example of how great advisors communicate? And it's funny, you can just sort of watch the color drain from their face as I'm asking them to help me out and let me listen to that recording and play it as an example of communication greatness. right? So I watch the color drain from their face. They usually make some kind of excuse about why they don't want to do that. And what they're really being confronted with is sort of the truth of, yeah, I'm pretty cocky about my communication skills, but I'm not so confident that we could play my client meetings as an example for the world to follow. I've had a few who've said, yeah, I'll do that. And I've never actually received a recording, and when I followed up with a phone call or an email, they just sort of disappear into the ether. All right, so it may seem self-evident. We can all improve our communication skills. I know that I'll listen to this webinar when I'm done, and I'm very confident I will hear things that I could have done better. And the next time I do this webinar, it'll ratchet up in improvement. So what kind of questions? What kind of questions do you ask? Well, first of all, these are definitely not simple-minded conversation about the weather, sports, or news headlines of the day. In fact, if you're having a conversation with somebody about the weather, sports, or what's happening in the news, I don't know a nicer way to say this, but you're just not a very good communicator. You know, great communicators have much more meaningful conversations than the shallow conversations about, you know, how about those Dodgers? Or, you know, can you believe what the president said today? Or, you know, it's going to be a hot one. I mean, those are not the hallmarks of a great communicator. Nor do you ask questions about their money, the markets, economics, or financial planning needs. So here's a proven way to start the conversation, and this is how you monetize your conversations into ideal clients. So what's on the screen is my favorite question to start a conversation. Tell me something good that's happening in your world today. All right, so particularly if you're at a cocktail party, a fundraiser, a business networking event, sit next to somebody on an airplane, tell me something good that's happening in your world today. One of the reasons why this question is so powerful is it elicits a positive emotional state. And it almost always triggers a personal response in one of these categories. They'll tell me something about their friends. They'll start talking about their family. I open all of my meetings with CEOs and presidents and national sales managers who are considering hiring us to speak at their conference, or interested in getting all of their advisors access to our virtual training platform. And rarely when I ask, tell me something good that's happening in your world, even though it's, you know, they're busy executives who show up probably coming from another meeting and they've got another meeting right after me, it's amazing. You can just hear them mellow out, and they rarely say something about their business. Tell me something good that's happening in your world today. Almost always friends, family, fitness, fun, faith, finances. Maybe it's something about their career, philanthropy, or fire. Notice the sort of the F sound. Philanthropy starts with a PH, but it's an F sound. So easy to remember. Friends, family, fitness, fun, faith, finances, philanthropy, and what people are passionate about. This is how you get people engaged in meaningful conversations. So you're asking lots of questions about people's personal lives. In fact, if they meet you at a cocktail party or a charity event, you know, they may not know, they may talk to you for 15 or 20 minutes before they ever even discover that you're a financial advisor. Right? They're just thinking you're just an interesting person who's fascinated with their favorite subject, them. And then, of course, you can build on this. And the way that you build on this is by asking the follow-up questions that keep them talking. So very simple. Tell me more about that. So tell me something good that's happening in your world today. Well, I'm really excited because, you know, it's been a few days since I've gone on my last bike ride, and this afternoon after I have lunch with a client, I'm going for a 3-hour bike ride. Tell me more about that. Right? So, well, I'm training for a big event in Europe. Some of my friends and I are going for an 8-day ride through the Pyrenees, and I'm a little behind in my training, so I'm excited to be riding today and ratcheting up so I've got a high enough level of fitness so that I can hang with my friends. Right? So tell me more about that. So, well, what do you mean by a bike ride in Europe in the Pyrenees? All right, so my point is that you keep them talking. So there's the conversation starter, and then there's the keep them talking. And this is a brilliant question. How will that impact your life? Or depending on what they're talking about, how will that impact the life or the lives of maybe a family member, spouse, child, friend, right? So powerful questions. And so essentially, this is how you turn a good opening question into a meaningful conversation, and a meaningful conversation into a next step appointment. So after listening for 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the situation, you pivot to your offer. And your offer is essentially whatever the next step is. The next step being something valuable that will benefit them, whether they do business with you or not. So this gives you a legitimate reason to have another conversation in the near future. Right, so this isn't something like I'll give you a free market report or a sample financial plan. You're looking for something that you can offer to them, a book, an article, a PDF, something really simple that sets you up to have a next conversation and connects to something that matters to them. It could sound very simply, well, based on what you told me about the things that matter to you and are important to you, I think you'd get quite a bit of value from, reading this book, reading this article. I'll send you a link to this, or I'll put this in the mail to you, and then let's schedule a time to talk about it sometime next week and go into more detail about how this can have a positive impact on your life. All right, so it's crucial that the offer be valuable to them, whether they do business with you or not. So what we're talking about here is the goal to make the other person feel like they're the only person in the room, or literally the universe. You're asking questions about who they are as a person, not questions about their finances or their financial goals. Now, this is a skill that anyone who's dedicated can master. So in the next few minutes, I'll walk you through the other sort of crucial moments. So think about these crucial moments. We've talked about one of them. And of course, the next one is when you connect with a prospect or a client on the phone, either because you're having the next conversation that follows your original conversation that we talked about. Maybe you're reaching out to your existing clients to invite them to come in with their spouse and all their documents to your office to have a bigger conversation about elevating the relationship and moving from insurance or investment management to more holistic financial planning. So this could be the gamut, all right? It could be inbound unsolicited referrals to an outbound call and everything in between. Your people skills have to be great at this crucial moment. You invest a lot of time and energy on prospecting and marketing. If you blow it now, it's all down the drain. So when you make the call to make follow-up contact, how do they respond? All right, so how do you inspire people, both spouses, to come to your office with all their financial documents? I mean, given all the demands on their time and all the options for getting financial education, information, and advice, what will be the reason they agree to take the time to get their financial documents together, carve time out of their busy work schedules or retirement activities to come to see you? All right, so very few financial advisors really develop these skills. Most financial advisors will meet with people, anybody, they'll sort of, I'll go anywhere they are. I don't care if their spouse is there. I don't care if they bring their financial documents. And they end up having many more steps in the process between meeting someone and then becoming an ideal client that's necessary. It doesn't just waste your time, energy, and money. It also is an unnecessary waste of time for the people who, if they became clients sooner, would get the benefit of being a client rather than the benefit of being a prospect. All right, so can you articulate how it's in their best interest to come to your office? Can you articulate why it's in their best interest for them to come to their office with the spouse, even if they're the one who handles the money? Can you articulate why you need to see their financial documents? So just sort of the time doesn't allow us to dive into that even deeper, but just think for a moment. Is it better for them to come to your office with their spouse and their documents? Is the meeting more effective in your office where there are no distractions or interruptions? Is the meeting better when you're working with them to co-create a vision of their future, for them to be together to do that? Is it better if they bring their financial documents in so you can really benchmark their current reality and help them discover how having a more comprehensive, holistic financial plan and doing business with you is better than what they're doing now, either doing it themselves or collaborating with other advisors? And then, of course, the next crucial moment is you being with them, right? And this is those of you who are familiar with our training videos, you may recognize Larry and Robin. This is a shot from one of our virtual training platform videos about how to conduct a great client meeting. So this may be a meeting with an existing client who you want to upgrade to full service financial planning. It might be a prospect, and this is the first time you're meeting face to face. Right? So when they are face to face, think of all the time and energy it took to get them into your office. So what questions do you ask? How well do you listen? Do you make a real emotional connection? Are both spouses engaged and involved? Are both spouses talking and collaborating? In an effective meeting, they co-create a clear vision of their future. And it should become obvious from you facilitating this experience that they need a better, more comprehensive financial plan, and that you are the obvious choice to make that happen. All right, so you may be familiar with some of my favorite questions. Just as a refresher, my favorite question after you introduce the recorder is to ask, what's important about money to you? Right? So you build each spouse or partner's values hierarchy. This is the emotional why. All right? So why should always precede what. So you have a 10 to 20 minute conversation with both spouses about their emotional why, and then that's followed by the tangible what. And the question is, what are your goals that require money and planning to achieve? And they talk about this in their words with target dates and specific amounts of money. You want to be especially careful about projecting your words into their conversation. For example, a lot of financially successful people, self-employed professionals and business owners, don't like the word retirement. So when I do workshops for financially successful people, I ask the question, so how many have a negative reaction to the term retirement? And almost always more than half the hands go up. And I ask, so what words do you associate with the term retirement? And they just blurted out around the room. Death, unproductive, burden to my family, not valuable anymore, bored. I mean, so you really want to be careful when you ask somebody what are your goals that require money and planning to achieve, that you don't project a word that moves the needle on the trust dial in the wrong direction. And of course, let's review your financial documents to benchmark where you are now. So in about 45 minutes, you can have a very engaging and effective client experience where it naturally lends itself to putting your offer on the table. And of course, this is really where the rubber meets the road. All right, so you've done a lot of work to get to this point, and if they don't become clients, it's a lot of time and energy wasted, right? So it's sort of like, think of it like being in the Shark Tank. You have to be very prepared and very good at answering the two critical questions you always get. How much does it cost? And what do we get? All right? So how succinctly and effectively can you articulate your value promise? How well can you answer these two simple client questions without over-explaining the details or giving a lecture that would only interest a graduate student in economics but bores your prospecting clients to tears? Right? So you may have had them at hello, but your people and communication skills determine whether or not you keep them all the way to the end, and existing clients upgrade their relationship with you, and prospective clients hire you from the beginning to do comprehensive planning. Advisors with great people skills much more often hear, let's get started, and seldom hear the dreaded, we need to think it over. So your communication skills, if you think about it, what is it that they need to think over? I mean, so they only need to think it over if they've been presented with too much information to process in this meeting. It's really your job to facilitate such an effective client experience that the decision to hire you is so easy that of course they would make it right now. Why would they want to delay having a better financial plan with an advisor that they trust more? So you probably are aware, if you keep track of your statistics, that the conversion rate of people who leave your office thinking it over, very few of them actually become clients. The statistics in this area are pretty dismal. I'm not talking about sales pressure. What I'm talking about is I'm talking about being so effective that it's obvious that we want to upgrade to doing business with you right now. So just in summary, I'll share this way of looking at this, these critical people skills with this flow chart. All right, so there are some crucial elements. So if you look at it as a flow chart, you have to be very effective with both prospects and clients at scheduling appointments with existing clients and prospects where both spouses come to your office with all the financial documents. Then a crucial people skill is how to conduct a much more compelling client interview that inspires existing clients and prospects to pay you an upfront fee for full financial planning. And we encourage you to do that, right? So if you're not currently charging a fee, we recommend that you do charge a fee. And then, of course, you have some follow-up meeting, and they've got to execute your planning process and implement the advice from the planning process. So if they don't take action, they don't really get benefit from the planning process. It's sort of like thinking about exercise doesn't make you physically fit. Having a fitness plan does not make you physically fit and healthy. Right? So I mentioned the bike ride I'm going on in September. So contemplating riding my bike, having a bike riding plan is not going to prepare me for 8 days of serious riding in the Pyrenees of Spain and France. So it's critical. It's critical that your people skills, that you're able to articulate your advice with conviction so that they implement. And of course, that's how you monetize your ability. You generate revenue from planning fees, advice fees, assets on the platform, insurance, annuities, estate planning, whatever you do. And then the more you do it, the better you get. That great advice from the back of the shampoo bottle: lather, rinse, and repeat. So the best advisors in the world have great people and communication skills. Technical skills are table stakes and increasingly being done by machines and artificial intelligence. All right, so you have the very sophisticated fintech. But in order to be able to use your technology tools, you have to get hired in the first place and have people who commit to implementing. And that's why the soft skills, the people skills, the communication skills are more important than the hard skills. I'm not discounting that the hard skills are important and that you have to use those tools. I'm just saying without the soft skills, chances are you don't know anybody who ever washed out of the business or sort of languished in mediocre land because they couldn't figure out the technical aspects of being a financial advisor. Chances are the reason they're no longer in the business or languishing in mediocre land is they're not very good at acquiring clients, especially ideal clients, and getting those clients to really fully implement their advice. So I like this quote, and as we sort of shift gears and transition to our Q&A time, George Leonard said, "Mastery is the mysterious process where what is at first difficult becomes progressively easier and more pleasurable through practice." And as I mentioned earlier, there is no finish line. Great communicators are always working to become even better communicators. And that's one of the reasons why we created the Advisor Roadmap virtual training platform. So as was mentioned in our introduction, we have over the years become by far the highest paid trainers and coaches in the financial services industry, like by 3x. So our high-end mastermind program carries a tuition of $60,000 a year over a 4-year period, right? And it's hard to get into, it's invitation only, and for most of the last decade of my career, that's what I've been doing in addition to speaking. But what's cool is that artificial intelligence and technology has progressed to the point where we can put our content, our scripts, and our training videos, etc., into a true virtual training platform for a very, very low fee. So I'm just going to give you the highlights of how this works, and then I'll shift gears and answer your questions. So if you have a question, go to the GoToWebinar control panel and submit your questions, and I'll begin answering your questions in just a couple of minutes here. So technically what the virtual training platform is it's a self-guided online virtual training platform packed with interactive training courses, videos, scripts, demonstrations, and high-value resources to help you master the repeatable processes that are crucial to acquiring ideal clients. And what's cool is it's 24/7, right? So while I'm off riding my bike in Europe, you can be getting great training and learn how to polish your people and your communication skills so you can acquire and serve ideal clients. And it goes to all your devices. It's smartphone enabled. So if you've just got 5 minutes, so for example, if you are on your way to a cocktail party and you're driving there and you're thinking, man, I'd really like to watch that video demo of how Bill engages people at a cocktail party so that they want to talk to you and you don't come across like a schmucky financial advisor. You could literally do that. You could stream that to your smartphone
in the parking lot, before you go into that event. You can do the same thing with a networking meeting. I mean, technology has made this amazing. So we also use what are called gamification techniques in adult learning theory. In other words, it's fun. All right. So, and also it was mentioned during my introduction that it's very inexpensive. So because it's virtual and literally thousands of people can sort of cost share this, it's very, very inexpensive. It's organized like this: client acquisition, client service, leadership, time priority, and calendar management. The whole values-based financial planning curriculum is on the virtual training platform. We have an entire curriculum called the 7 Critical Conversations to Build and Maintain a 7-Figure Planning and Advice Business. That curriculum is available. These 2 courses alone, you should easily be able to monetize what you learn from just these 2 courses into tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But we also send you a daily motivational quote every morning in your inboxes, and I actually pick all the motivational quotes. It's something that inspired me that I thought might inspire you. Every Wednesday you get a 3 to 7 minute video with some either little content piece or something that will, again, hopefully sort of inspire you to continue to do the work you need to do to achieve your goals. Every month we have a podcast with either a top advisor or an expert. It's a video podcast, and you can just listen to the audio or you can watch the video. Dozens of high-level video training lessons. Some things are interactive courses, and some content can just be communicated in a video training lesson that you can just watch at your own pace. Dozens of articles on a variety of subjects to help you grow your business and serve your clients. Every month we have a live webinar. We just call it Ask Me Anything. So those were scheduled to be about an hour, but now that we have so many people on the platform, I usually block 2 hours. They're recorded, so if you can't show up live, you can listen to the recording. There's also a very robust 24/7 FAQ system that's organized and keyword search, so you don't have to wait for the monthly webinars. There's a really cool dashboard for tracking your progress, and you should expect a really big ROI. This is just one example recently. So Shannon applied something she learned from the virtual training platform, and she went 3 for 3. And I can't promise you'll always get 100% conversion rate, but she turned a small investment into a $15,000 ROI in a short period of time. So the dollar amount, so for your edification, is it's $100 a month, or if you want to pay for the whole year in advance, it's $900 for a year. That's like getting 3 months free. So it is a 1-year commitment, so you subscribe for a year at a time. You can pay monthly, or you can pay in advance and save some money, and that's the website on the screen there. We also have some fast action bonuses. So we have a webinar series that starts on July 19th, and the ticket price for that is $1,000 as a separate tuition. But when you join the virtual training platform before these bonuses expire, then you'll get a ticket to all 5 of these webinars, plus a 6th Ask Me Anything webinar. So you might find these subjects are very valuable. Again, for less than the cost of your first-year membership, you get this whole webinar series. You also get a copy of the Values-Based Financial Planning book. And we have this really cool client engagement tool called the Financial Roadmap, and there's training about how to use it on the virtual training platform, and we'll send you a complimentary package of your first 25 to get you started. So the fast action bonuses expire next Wednesday at midnight Pacific time, and that's the website if you want to check that out. You can read about it. There's a demo. I think everything you need to know to make a good decision about that is available for you online. All right, so questions lining up in the queue. If you have a question, go to the GoToWebinar control panel, and I will answer your question. I can see that some of you are digitally raising your hand, and because there are hundreds of people on the webinar today, we can't just open up the phone lines. So you go to the control panel and you have to type in your question like you're writing a text or an email and submit it that way. If I start opening phone lines, the background noise can be a disaster. So hopefully technology will progress when we can do that at some point in the future, but every time we try it, it's a noisy mess. So we want to answer your questions without being distracting. All right, so the first question comes from Stephen Lidkea. Actually, it's not a question, it's a comment. Hey, that's pretty cool. A picture of the mayor of my city. All right, Stephen. All right. Well, it's just a public city. That is pretty cool. I didn't do that deliberately, but that's good to know. Maybe you can come back in and tell me what city what city is represented. All right, so Teresa says, thank you. I've always been uncomfortable with the thought of an elevator pitch. Questions obtain so much more information. And I didn't say this earlier, Teresa, but I do want to point out, notice I never talked about being a better salesperson. In fact, I sort of criticized that. Notice I never talked about making features and benefits presentations, handling objections, and closing. All right, so that's because what makes you a trusted advisor is really the antithesis of being a good salesperson. In fact, if you want somebody to not trust you as quickly as possible, all you have to do is show up behaving like a salesperson, right? So we are essentially the anti-sales training company, right? You'll never hear me talk about making features and benefits presentations, handling objections, and being a better closer, because being a trusted advisor is so much more effective than that, and probably much more in alignment with who you really want to be. Right, so when you ask somebody, would you rather be a trusted advisor, would you rather be a salesperson, it's pretty much a rhetorical question. So Teresa goes on to ask, how do you handle a situation where the client is uncomfortable being recorded? And Teresa, it's interesting. It's really a transference of emotion. And what I mean by that is the clients and prospects are never uncomfortable being recorded. It's you who's afraid they're going to be uncomfortable being recorded. And so you can transfer that emotion, right? So if you sit down and let me just go back into the, hang on just a second. I'm going to go back. I like to have an image on the screen that's relevant. All right, so this is the image. So here's the recorder. All right, that's my phone, and in this training video on the virtual training platform, I'm demonstrating exactly some of the things that we've talked about on this webinar today. And when you introduce the recorder the way I taught, so why would somebody I'm sorry, I got distracted trying to look at the questions for a second. So the question is, why would somebody reject the idea or be uncomfortable with the recording? So I'm going to go through the script again. So Larry and Robin, we really appreciate the fact that you came here for this meeting today. I mean, the fact that you brought your documents, it took time out of your busy schedules, really means you're serious about making smart choices about your money. Is that true? And that would be the preface to introducing the recorder in a face-to-face meeting. And they're going to say, yeah, that's true. I mean, why else would they have done that? Well, we take it really seriously too. You'll notice that we're going to ask a lot of questions. We're going to take a lot of notes. We're going to put things in visual perspective for you today with this interesting tool called the Financial Roadmap. And you'll also notice here that we record the meeting. And the reason we record the meeting is because we're really thorough. Do you know how you can watch a movie a second or third time and see things you didn't see the first time through? And you pause, and it's a rare instance where somebody doesn't say, yeah, we know what that's like. And then you say, well, obviously this is more important than a movie, so should we decide to do business together, we'll have a permanent record of our conversation. My team and I will listen to it again because we want to make sure that we get our advice just right for you. So what would somebody be uncomfortable about? Gee, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that you're operating at a very high level of professionalism and you clearly want to get this right for me. I'm uncomfortable that you're going to use what we've talked about here to help me make better decisions about my money and give me better advice. I mean, rarely do they even ask a question. Most of the time they just smile and nod, and they don't even verbally say okay. They just sort of like, yeah, it's sort of, you can tell by their body language that's fine. Every once in a while somebody will ask, well, what do you do with the recording? Right? So, well, the recording goes into a encrypted electronic vault. So just like all of our clients' financial documents and everything that's private, we retain that in a digital encrypted electronic vault. So we'll put the recording there, and if we don't do business together, then we actually destroy the recording. Does that answer your question? I mean, not only do people not object, it's very common for spouses to look at each other and they smile and nod and will say something like, "Now that's interesting," or "Boy, that's a good idea. I can see how that would be helpful." And when I was a rookie financial advisor, this was one of the unique things that I did that distinguished me from veteran financial advisors, because that was my goal. You know, you'll remember, it's your goal. I'll bring you back to this slide from earlier. You know, it's your goal to do something compelling so that they hire you and fire their other advisors. And what I found is that the longer they had a relationship with another advisor, the easier it was to steal the client away from that advisor. And some of it had to do with the fact, sure, I asked better questions, I was a better listener, I put a better offer on the table, but right from the beginning of the meeting, in that first 45 seconds to a minute, they're thinking to themselves, we've been doing business with, you know, John or Susan over at XYZ company, and they've never recorded the meetings, and it makes perfect sense, right? So, and you'll discover that when you listen to the recordings, I promise you, you and your team will do a better job for your clients. I promise you that you will. You'll also hear things that'll make you a better communicator, and that will benefit all of your existing clients, your future prospects and clients. Right, so you not only will find people are rarely uncomfortable with this, you will move the needle on the trust dial in the right direction. Yeah, you know, Patrice, this is a really, really good question. All right, hang on just a second. All right, let me move back here. I'll just move back to this slide so that you have it. Yeah, I just got a note. I put this up wrong. Funny, isn't that funny? So remember I told you that I'd listen to this webinar and I would find things I could do better? I actually had a typo on how I put this up. It's youradvisorroadmap.com/trust. All right, so thank you for that. It's good to have a good team. So Patrice, your question is, how does one gain trust in themselves in order to project it if being humble is a good idea? Yeah, so being, you know, having trust and confidence and projecting it isn't being cocky or arrogant. All right, so, and the only way to do that is to really do two things. It's to go out into the real world and actually apply what you're doing. So remember at the beginning of the webinar, I put this slide up and said, well, how did these people get so good at communication and people skills? And the answer is practice. So one of the things that I'm really excited about our virtual training platform is there are actually practice chapters. So you can take the ideas that you're learning and you can practice with your computer. There's actually, it's becoming so sophisticated through the artificial intelligence and the power of the technology, you can do some practice and build your skill and confidence, and build your skill and confidence that you are able to engage people in a way that is that builds trust. And then of course you also actually have to do it in the real world. All right, so you know you're going to go to, let me bring up this visual, you know, every time you're in one of these situations you practice, right? And you're in these situations a lot. I mean, how often have you sat next to somebody on an airplane for a 1 to 5 hour flight and the two of you didn't say a single word to each other? That was a great opportunity to practice. How many times have you been at a dinner party where you're talking a lot? Instead, consider just playing the game of how do I get everybody else to talk about themselves and me do as little talking as possible. So when they ask me a question, I give a short answer and ask a question and try to keep them talking. So every situation when you're with people is a great opportunity to practice. Yeah, let me, so the question is, would I repeat the follow-up to the free, relevant, and easy? You know, happy to. So basically, you're talking to someone at a charity event, you've had a nice conversation. In fact, your goal, a lot of the advisors who implement what we teach and follow our scripts, and you know, like I said, this is a great webinar, but there's only so much you can do in an hour. You know, so on our virtual training platform, it won't surprise you, it's very script heavy. So you not only can watch the training videos and go through the courses, but you can download the scripts. All right, so there's a complete training video on how to have these conversations, and I demonstrate in different scenarios. All right, you're at a cocktail party, you're at a fundraiser, you're sitting next to somebody on an airplane. I demonstrate in multiple scenarios how you engage these people and then how you pivot to this offer. So here's how it sounds. Alex, based on the things that you've told me about how important your family is, how you want to make sure that your wife Lisa has a great life and is taken care of. You've got your autistic son Zach, and he's a high priority for you because you want him to function at the highest level possible, but he's probably always going to be somewhat dependent on you. You also have these significant business goals. You've done great in real estate, but it's nice to hear you talk about how you have even bigger goals for the future. So based on some of the things you told me about that, I think you would get benefit from reading a particular book or reading a particular article. And so with your permission, I'd like to send that article to you, and then there are some concepts in the article that would be fun for us to discuss on the phone. So either if you don't have time to read the article, I can cover some of the highlights with you, or if you do have time to read the article, I think you'd find a stimulating conversation about that. So how about if I send that article to you, and let's schedule a time to just talk on the phone or Skype for 15 or 20 minutes next week. Does that work for you? And so again, what makes that pivoting to that offer successful is if we've just had a pleasant conversation for 15 or 20 minutes, then think of it sort of like that's our first meeting, and now I've proposed we actually go on a date. So sort of using personal relationships as an analogy. So if you've enjoyed the conversation we've had so far, when I propose that we do this again, maybe a little bit more formally, it's only 15 to 20 minutes. It's on the phone or online, so it doesn't require a significant investment of time or energy. It's an easy thing to say yes to. So it's free. I'm offering you something of value and some of my time for free. It's relevant in that it's connected to what we've been talking about, and it's easy. Easy to say yes to. Easy for me to, yep, let's just talk on the phone. All right? And so that's how that works. That's what you asked me to do, so I'll stop there. What's the transition phrase going through the values ladder step by step when you ask the question, what's important about money to you? Let's see if I have a visual for that. I sometimes keep some extra slides in here to see if I have a visual for that. All right, I think I can get to one here relatively easily. Well, I was wrong. It's not there. Just give me a moment. I just want to blow this up for you so that you can see it. There we go. Okay, so what you're looking at is you're looking at two values staircases. And on the virtual training platform, you can learn this with or without the financial roadmap. Right, so the financial roadmap is just a good visual tool. If you like the financial roadmap, you'll find clients like it as well. Use it. If you don't like the financial roadmap, you can have values conversations without the financial roadmap. So we teach it both ways on the virtual training platform. So let's say with Lynn, I asked Lynn, what's important about money to you? And her first answer was freedom. And then there really isn't a transition. I simply ask, what's important about freedom to you? And then her answer was having variety in my life. And then you ask the what's important question, and the only thing that changes is the content. You insert the content from their previous answer to build their value staircase. So again, what's really cool on the virtual training platform is not only can you accelerate how rapidly you learn this, but this is one of those things you can actually practice. So you get the script, you watch me demonstrate it, and then you get a chance to practice so that before you go out in the real world and do it, you have more confidence that you know what to do to build their values staircase. As I mentioned about people and communication skills, what's also very important is it's very important that I talked about your way of being, right? So it isn't just a function of executing the questions properly, it's really being able to facilitate them, because the values conversation is sort of zen. And a lot of financial advisors who are real technical, what they'd rather do is they'd rather prematurely open their financial planning software and show you how cool it is. All right, so your financial planning software shouldn't be opened until after you've been hired. And so values conversations with both spouses, a collaborative goals conversation and a benchmarking of the financial reality puts you in a position where they will pay you for financial planning so you can then use your tool. And so one of the reasons why so many financial advisors don't get hired in the first meeting is because they overwhelm people. They open their financial planning software and think, I'm going to show you how cool this is. And now two problems with that. One, how do you get somebody to pay you for financial planning when you've sort of halfway done financial planning by taking them through the software? And number two, it's sort of overwhelming. And there's a saying that the confused mind says no. So your goal is to keep it really simple. So Kelly, I hope that answers your question, as well as gives you guys some insights on how that helps you get hired. All right, so Paul says, I've struggled with stuttering my whole life, and still from time to time I get caught up with certain words, and sometimes using pauses or substituting words helps stop me from stuttering. Any ideas about this? Should I just tell clients I stutter, which I do now, and it's something that challenges me every day? Yeah, Paul, I think that's fine. I also know that most of us actually, even though we wouldn't call it stuttering, when you listen to most financial advisors or most human beings' recordings of their communication, what they do is just as bad as stuttering or worse. They say, like, they use a lot of words that are throw words. They say stuff and things instead of being specific. They talk too fast. They don't pause and engage people and ask questions that keep them involved. So at least you sort of have an excuse. You actually have a physical affliction for why your communication might not be flawless. But I don't think that stuttering is any worse than some of the terrible communication, habits that most of us have to work to fix. The other thing that I know is I have friends who are professional speakers who have overcome stuttering. And the way that they say that they've done that is just by speaking a lot, by really practicing. So we're back to that idea that you have scripts, you rehearse your scripts, you speak them, so you just may have to do it more. What I would probably do is, I'm not sure I would tell them that I stutter in advance. What you might consider is, if you do stutter, you might just smile and say, one of the biggest challenges in life I've had to overcome is I'm a stutterer. And so sometimes I might just do that. And I think, if anything, it would endear you to people. The fact that you have this job where communication skills are so important, and you've had to, overcome a bigger challenge than most people have to overcome. All right, Jan. Bill, I've been interacting with a prospect for 10 minutes. How do you get contact info to fulfill the free offer without coming off intrusive? Well, first of all, what they've done is they've agreed that they want to meet with you. All right, so once they've said, yeah, I want to meet with you, if they've said, yes, I'd like to talk to you next week, then the natural thing to do is exchange contact information. Right, so I think asking somebody for their contact information is only intrusive if they haven't agreed to wanting to meet with you again. So it's very natural after somebody says, oh yeah, I think that'd be great, put that book in the mail, and I'd love to talk to you about that. And so once they say that, the natural thing, the logical thing to say is, terrific, let me just get your contact information so I can drop the book in the mail, and how would you like to connect? What number? Particularly in today's day and age where it's so easy to share contact information. I mean, you just open up your phone, which has your contact information, and you just click share it and you send it to them, right? So I wouldn't, again, it's a non-issue. I think what you're thinking is it's, maybe the way you've done things in the past would make it seem intrusive, but it's perfectly natural. So sort of think about when you were single, maybe you're still single now, but when you were single, if you wanted to go out with someone and they had asked you out and then needed, your contact information to follow up on the date you just agreed to have, you're happy to give it to them. On the other hand, if you don't want to go out with them, if you don't want to go on the date, then they've invited you on the date and you've said no. Therefore, there's no legitimate reason to ask for your contact information because you've said no to the next invitation. All right, so asking for the contact information happens after they've agreed to want to talk to you again. So Simon asked, Bill, I appreciate your work. Thank you, and you're welcome. What is your recommendation for scheduling learning that we should adopt? Very, very good question. Right, so when you join our virtual training platform, we actually have a little video orientation on how you can map out what you learn, right? Because it's sort of good news, bad news. When you go into what's on the screen now is the actual Advisor Roadmap virtual training platform. It's sort of good news, bad news. On the one hand, you say, man, that's incredible. Look at all those. I go into client acquisition, and boy, look at all those scripts and look at all those courses. That's amazing. I go into the script vault. I look at the articles and the videos. I go back to everything, and it's like, man, there's a lot of content. So initially, you say, oh, that's terrific. I'm getting a huge amount of value, for $900. And then you go, oh man, that's a lot to cover. All right, so I got a history of podcasts that I can listen to. I've got let me go back to the vault, and I've got all these motivational videos that I can listen to. So on the one hand, there are things you can do if you just have 5 minutes. So maybe instead of watching the news, then you can watch 5 minutes. If you've only got a few minutes, you can listen in your car. You can do things that are just a few minutes. But when you join, we give you essentially a learning path, right? So we say, all right, this is where to focus on. So remember I talked earlier about success starts with a list, right? So we walk you through a way to very rapidly monetize your investment. It's our goal, really simply, and I talk about this in the orientation video, that if you invest, let's say you join the virtual training platform. Let's say you take the more sort of financially logical option and you join for $900 and now you've got $900 on your credit card, right? So well, your credit card bill doesn't come for a few days or as long as 30 days, and then you've got another 30 days to pay it, right? So if you're really following what we recommend, you will have recovered your investment before you actually have to take money out of your bank account or your checking account to pay the credit card bill that you put this on, right? So this isn't just sort of theoretical stuff, right? So we give you a learning path, we give you guidance on exactly what to do so you can implement and very quickly monetize your investment. So it's really a good question. I appreciate you asking it. It's a thoughtful question. Interesting. So Stephen says the mayor in one of my pictures is the mayor of Guelph, Ontario, Canada, population 130,000. Nice. Raymond, yeah, I feel bad you missed the whole webinar too, Raymond. Hopefully you found the part valuable. So the whole webinar is recorded, so you're going to get a follow-up link. It takes us about 24 hours to download it and set it up, but by sometime tomorrow you'll get a follow-up email that says, hey, here's how you can watch the recording of the webinar, including all the Q&A. Yeah, John, this is one of my favorite things to do. Right, so John asked the questions, how do you connect with wealthier people when you are a young advisor? And that was me. I mean, the reason that I teach what I teach today, I'm 58 years old now. I was an advisor between 1985 and 1988, and it was not my intention to write books and become a keynote speaker and have a whole training and coaching program and a virtual training platform for financial advisors. The reason that I developed this skill is because when I was 26, 27, 28, 29 years old, I wanted to figure out how to get wealthy people as clients. I worked really hard to get hired at a major firm in La Jolla, California. I was a transplant to San Diego. I don't come from a wealthy family. I don't have any background with wealthy people. I didn't have any contacts in San Diego. You know, I moved here because the weather is nice and I wanted to surf. And then I sort of realized as I got into my mid-20s, there's a pretty good chance, and I say this with my tongue buried deeply in my cheek, I'm not going to go pro. You know, I mean, I'm never going to make a living surfing. You know, I was tending bar, I was waiting tables, and I lived in a crappy little beach town called Mission Beach. And if you know San Diego, if you look north up the hill from Mission Beach, you see all these big houses on the hill called Mount Soledad in La Jolla. And I wondered to myself, gee, who lives there? Right, so why do I live in a crappy little apartment with a roommate in Mission Beach, and I'm a bartender and a waiter? What do those people do? You know, how did they make their money? And it sort of occurred to me that maybe if I was in the money business, if I learned how to be a financial advisor, I could meet people with money. I essentially had my clients become my mentors, is what I wanted to do. I said, well, I'm going to have to get hired. I don't have a college degree. I don't have any contacts. I don't know any rich people. So how am I going to do this? And that was my mission. And despite my sales manager's advice that I should work in my natural market, basically other poor people, other young poor people, I set out on a mission to figure out, how does a young person engage with wealthy people? How does a young person get wealthy people to come to their office with all their financial documents and both spouses and have a meeting? What offer should I put on the table that's bigger and better than they're getting? Because they've been working with their advisors. They're members of the same country club. They play bridge together. Their kids go to high school and college together. How am I going to unseat that relationship? And essentially, I figured that out. And in the process of documenting it for myself, my friends, who were much better technicians than I was, were frankly frustrated with, well, how are you getting the clients, Bill? Right? So I'm a better technician. So, and I said, it's really pretty simple. Well, you're studying, you know, stocks and how to build portfolios, and, you know, you're studying the technical things. I'm a student of how to acquire and serve clients. And they said, well, then how do you serve those clients if you don't have very good technical skills? And I laughed. I said, well, I bring you in. Right? So at our company, we had lots of resources. There was a financial planning department. There was an investment management department. There was an insurance specialist. So I didn't really need to be the technical expert. I needed to be the expert at getting the clients to say, to meet with me and to say yes. And when they said yes, I said, well, we're going to go to work, and I'm going to bring in all our technical experts. I'm basically your point person, and you have the benefit of the 330 years of expertise. I'm the least experienced person, but I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. And that offer, that value promise, was very compelling. And so I documented it. I started teaching it to my friends informally, and that's sort of, I won't bore you with the whole story, but that's how I ended up teaching it to others. And now, some almost 30 years later, we've perfected it. We've taught these processes to tens of thousands of financial advisors. They work phenomenally well, and you can access it all for $900. John, if you have any other questions about that, just let me know. I'm happy to go into more detail. I work out of my home and don't have an area to meet clients there. I would have to meet them at their work or home. Will I be as credible doing that? No, absolutely not. The worst place to meet with them is at their work or home. Their home and their office is a distraction-producing machine. All right, so what you want to do is you want to have a relationship, which I'm sure you already have, with an accounting firm or a lawyer or a legal firm, and just ask if you can use their conference room. They'll probably let you use their conference room for free, and that's just where you meet your clients. In terms of recording client meetings, how often do clients ask for a copy in your experience, and what should we consider from that point of view? Well, Stephen, it's a really good question, and actually all your questions are good. I don't want to imply that some questions are better than others. My point is that they almost never ask for a copy of the recording. They almost never ask for a copy of the recording. They almost never ask for a copy of your notes. They almost never ask for a copy of the financial roadmap. In the rare case where they ask for any of that, you give it to them. Right? So in today's day and age, you can so easily just upload the MP3 to a secure encrypted Dropbox and give them access to it. So that's really easy. When I started doing this, in the rare instance when somebody would ask for a copy of the recording, I mean, it was literally a physical plastic cassette tape. You know, a full-size cassette and then a micro cassette. And if they wanted a copy of that, you know, I had to play it from one machine and make a copy recording to another machine, or take it to a professional tape duplication place and then put it in the mail to them. All right, so it's always been viable. I think you'll just be very pleasantly surprised how easily people are happy to have you record and don't really care really what happens to the recording or want a copy of that. Yeah, Eddie, that's basically, Eddie asked, will the advisor roadmap provide scripts for the script playbook that you referred to that we should make? Yes, absolutely. So everything we've talked about, there are very complete scripts. You can download them. You can create a digital playbook. So you might want to create your script binder online and just, on your laptop or on your tablet, probably your iPad more likely, since that's the most portable and accessible. So, yep, basically you can build it yourself, or you can just join the virtual training platform and get it all already done. All right, so Stephen, let's see. All right, Stephen says, okay, thanks, but I'm based in Dubai. I'm not sure what that's a follow-up question to. I don't see a reason why. I mean, we have clients from virtually all over the world. You know, so we have for a long time. So advisors fly to us from South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Holland, the UK, all over Canada, all 50 United States, and now it's, you know, that's exploding now that we have a virtual training platform. You know, so some advisors learn in English because we only teach what we teach in English, and they execute in Spanish and French and Dutch and German, Korean, Mandarin, Cantonese. I've gotten feedback. I've met advisors at conferences, you know, who've, you know, said, "Hey, I'm using what you teach, and it works in French, it works in Spanish, it works in German, it works in Dutch." You know, so these are human skills. So I'm not sure why you're saying, "But I'm based in Dubai." So assuming you're working with people who are there. All right. Dean asked the question, what do you use instead of I? So I think I understand your question, and it's really a good point. So one of our podcast interviews was with a woman named Patricia Fripp. And Patricia is truly a communication skills expert. She's part of our faculty in our Committed Advisor Mastermind program, that $5,000 a month program that I mentioned earlier. And she talks about something called you-focused language. So in simple terms, one of the things I try to do, but I'm not perfect, but for example, instead of talking about what I will teach you on the virtual training platform, I phrase it in you-focused language. So when you join the platform and go through the training, you will learn how to more effectively communicate and build your people skills so you can acquire more ideal clients and build your ideal business and create your ideal life. Right? So when you're talking to prospects, so instead of saying, "I will talk about when we are on the phone," say, "You will discover." So an additional thing you can do, sort of an advanced thing you can do, is transcribe your recordings. You can take your MP3. You can go online and find a transcription service, usually for about a penny a word. They will transcribe your entire conversation and client meeting, and then read the transcript, and then just circle every time you said "I," and could you have converted that to "we." I mean, it's a very, very powerful thing to do. Again, it's painful to actually read the transcription of your interactions with prospects and clients. Yep, Al just asked again. I'm sure your question was in the queue before I answered it. If they ask, you give your client a copy of the recording. if we're listening to the recording a second or third time, how do we afford to take that kind of time? Yeah, Mark, that's a really good question. All right, so when you join the Advisor Roadmap virtual training platform, you're going to one of the courses we recommend that you take early rather. It's in the leadership section. Is the course on how to build your ideal business and create your ideal life with ideal clients. And so the reality is that, for example, Scott, who's on the screen right now, so Scott's the advisor who's added 10 ideal clients who pay him $36,000 in the last 10 months. And what he's doing is his old business was 140 clients who paid an aggregate $400,000 of recurring revenue based on AUM. All right, so what he did is he's converting that business because he's elevating his client value, and he realizes he can't do this level and this quality of work for 100 or 140 clients. So he's building an ideal client business with a maximum of 50 ideal clients who pay him $36,000 a year. So he's just finished up his first year. In something less than 3 more years, he'll have 50 ideal clients who are paying him $36,000 each per client as a flat fee. That's $1.8 million of recurring revenue. Right? So that's roughly 4.5x what he's currently doing, but with only 50 clients. All right, so you really are, it's insightful of you to recognize that if you're going to do comprehensive financial planning and financial services, if you're going to deliver a very high level of value and client experience, if you're really going to be this thorough where you listen to the recordings of your client meetings, then you're going to have to, something's going to have to give because there's only 168 hours in the week. Now that said, some of the time you're just going to use found time. So you can listen to recordings in your car. I actually had one advisor say to me, but Bill, if I listen to recordings of my prospect and client meetings in the car, then I'm wasting the $10 a month I'm spending on Sirius satellite radio. And at first I thought he was joking, but he was serious. And I sort of laughed. I said, oh, that's really funny. He said, no, I'm serious. I said, so I don't know what you're listening to on Sirius satellite radio that you could possibly think is more important than listening to yourself, meeting with prospects and clients and building great communication skills. So cancel your Sirius satellite radio. I mean, it's so easy today. You just plug in your phone where you already have the recording, and you can press play, and you can play the recording, Bluetooth or hardwired right through your car stereo system. I mean, so, this dates back, before technology and audio technology was so easy. But it's really a good observation. We've concluded that if you really want to be a comprehensive, full-service financial planner who's doing holistic work, it's hard to do that and have a great quality of life for more than about 50 clients. All right, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. Yeah, Stephen, I think I've answered this. Stephen asked, what client-facing documents are there on the online 12 months access? So I think just in the interest of, making sure I don't turn this into too much of a sales pitch, I want the ratio of value you're getting, to talking about our virtual training platform to be, 99% giving you value. So you can go in, or if you want to get a more sort of personal tour, just call the office. And our phone number is 619-255-4888, 619-255-4888, and we'll happy to sort of take you on a personal tour if you want to do that. Hopefully that answers your question. You are welcome. Can you show the summary slide right before Renee Zellweger? Yep, I can. This is, I'm sorry, where's the slide? Where's Renee? You had me at hello. There you go. All right, so how do you find pockets of rich people to kickstart your career? How did I do it? It's really not complicated. So when we have some training about that on the virtual training platform, but I have to tell you, it's really simple. Right, so I get that question asked a little bit differently. I sort of find it interesting. So Bill, I'm really good at what I do. How do I find rich people? And I just ask the question. So the first question is, so where do you live? All right, so James, I think, do you still live in Prescott? I think you're, I see some familiar names. So James, I think you still live in Prescott. And so I would just ask you, so wherever you live, James lives in Prescott, Arizona, you live in Chicago, you probably live in a suburb of Chicago. I mean, why did I go to work in La Jolla? I live in San Diego. I was 25 years old when I started in this career. Why did I go to work in La Jolla? I mean, I literally would not take no for an answer to go to work for Merrill Lynch in La Jolla. And I would have worked for any big firm, honestly. In those days, I sort of thought I needed to have a big name behind me. I'm not sure that that's true, but I don't think it hurt me either. So, I mean, I just wouldn't take no for an answer. And they told me, well, we don't have an opening in La Jolla. Would you like to work in Carlsbad? And I laughed. I said, why would I want to work in Carlsbad when the people who live in La Jolla are richer than the people who live in Carlsbad? I mean, isn't the whole idea of being a financial advisor to build a business with the wealthiest people you can meet? And I remember the manager sort of laughed and said, well, that makes sense. Not everybody thinks of it that way. I've never been able to process anybody who says, gee, I prefer to work in the middle market. Honestly, I just don't believe it. I do not believe anybody prefers to work with people who have $500,000 rather than people who have $5 million. I think it's a comfort zone. I think it's a limiting belief thing. So let me walk you through the process. So you tell me you live in whatever town you live in. The first question I ask you is I ask, where do the rich people in your town live? I have never asked that question where the person who lived in that town couldn't answer exactly where they live. If you live in San Diego, you're instantly going to say, if you've been here for 3 days, you're going to know the richest people in San Diego live in La Jolla and Rancho Santa Fe. Right? Now, there are other pockets, but those are the 2 towns you're going to name. You might say Mount Helix, you might say Del Mar. It's not like there aren't wealthy people scattered all over San Diego, but they're sort of concentrated in certain areas. So you know where they live. The next question I'm going to ask you is, where do they go? And chances are you're going to know, well, this is where they go. It didn't take me long to figure out where the wealthy people in La Jolla go. This is where they play golf. These are the charities they're involved in. There's a museum of contemporary art. I mean, it doesn't take long. Ask any top realtor in your town, where are the wealthiest people in this town? Where do they live? Where do they go? Who do they hang out with? You'll very quickly know exactly where to go. So for example, there are fundraising events. You can imagine in a community with rich people, they're constantly looking for ways to give away their money. And they have all kinds of charity events. I mean, you could go to a different charity event probably 3 nights a week in La Jolla, and that's one of the things that I did. So I learned how to engage them, the same things that I teach, a lot of trial and error. So I actually just put my recorder on record in my pocket. You can do the same thing with your phone. I just put it on record in my pocket so that I could listen to how effectively did I engage them, what questions did they ask, when I pivoted to making my offer, if they said yes, why do I think they said yes, if they said no, why do I think they said no, and I just go back to the drawing board and just continually refining the scripts, right? So you know where they are. I know you know where they are. And so everybody I take this little exercise says, you're right, I know where they are. And so my question is, on Saturday night, 300 wealthy people are going to be getting together to raise money for cancer. Why aren't you going? And it always boils down to, I'm scared. All right? I don't know exactly what to say. I'm young, I'm inexperienced, I don't have a lot of experience working with wealthy people. All right, so, well, here, I can tell you exactly what questions to ask and how to do this and give you training in that. What I can't do, for $900 is I can't fly to your town and go with you. It's all demonstrated on the virtual training platform, but you have to actually show up. All right, so imagine having the skill and confidence that you can talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere. And here's what I discovered very quickly. Rich people aren't so bad. In fact, they're really nice. There's really very little difference between somebody with $5 million and $500,000 personality-wise, right? They're interested in these same things. Remember these things? They're interested, they talk about their friends, their family, fitness, fun, faith, finances, philanthropy. In fact, if there is a distinction, they're giving more money away, right? So rich people are great. right? Not only do they pay a boatload in taxes, but then they look for ways to give more money away. They build buildings for cancer research and academic buildings and for the arts. Man, rich people are awesome. I mean, I really developed very quickly an affinity for rich people. And I didn't know that I was going to like them. I mean, initially I just thought, well, they got money. I'd rather get a $5 million client than a $500,000 client, and it takes the same amount of effort. In fact, I would argue that it's easier to work with rich people than middle income people. Right? So I'm not talking about ultra high net worth. They don't have to be billionaires, but sort of that sweet spot of 2 to 20 million. Very easy to work with, very easy to find. You know, almost everybody who owns a house on the side of Mount Soledad in La Jolla probably is worth 2 to 20 million bucks. Right? So that's what you have to do. You know, it's a skill just like anything else. And not shockingly, the more you interact with wealthy people, the easier it becomes to interact with them. You start to understand who they are. You start to sort of understand how they're misunderstood. You become relaxed. And and it did happen for me that way, where 4 or 5 of my financially successful clients did become mentors of mine. You know, because I was curious. I was curious about being rich. I was curious about all that, and I asked them a lot of questions. And I actually found that endeared them to me. And as a young advisor, when they would talk about moving from their veteran advisor, I would just ask, so how old is your advisor? And they would say, well, you know, my advisor is, you know, in his or her 50s or 60s. And I said, so they're about the same age as you. So sooner or later, you're going to have to find another advisor because they're going to retire, either because they want to or because they have to, maybe because of health problems. I don't know. I mean, when you're 80, who's going to be your financial advisor? You're not going to have an 80-year-old financial advisor or a 70-year-old financial advisor. And they'd sort of laugh, and I'd say, so, you know, now is the time to proactively, you know, move your business to a younger advisor of your choice, you know, rather than reacting when your advisor tells you they're retiring and they're just trying to turn you over to somebody you have no decision about who you work with. Right? So I actually found as a young advisor, it was very easy with a good process to do this. So I'm going a little bit beyond the scope of your question, so I'll move on. Yeah, sure. So the question from John is sort of books and articles. And we have a couple of examples. In the virtual training platform, we have 2 examples. You know, so one book is the Values-Based Financial Planning book. Right? So the reason I wrote values-based financial planning is because advisors who were following the values-based financial planning process wanted to have a book that they could hand out. So on the one hand, it's obviously financial planning is in the title. But on the other hand, if you've read the book, or you'll get a free copy of the book when you join the virtual training platform, you'll see that there are exercises in the book that allow you to deliver on the promise of giving them value that's connected to what matters to them by just having a conversation about things in the book. So on the virtual training platform, I demonstrate using the book as the gift, and I also demonstrate using a couple of different just articles that you can just download off the internet that also facilitate that. So it could be just about anything, all right? So it could be something, the idea is you want to make sure it's something meaningful that'll impact the things that are more valuable to them. All right, yeah, sorry about that. I can show the financial, oh, there was one right here. I went through all that work to go find one, and I forgot there was one right here. So there's the financial roadmap again. So it essentially has 3 key elements. It's visual, it's experiential, it's engaging, it's interactive, and so simply put, and notice it's nice and clean and neat. So you don't take miscellaneous notes on the front of the financial roadmap. So you take each spouse or partner up the value staircase, you benchmark each of their goals, and every goal has 4 elements. The name of the goal, the target date, the amount of money, and words that describe what they're thinking and feeling once they achieve their goals. So this right side of the financial roadmap is inspiring, it's emotional, it gets people enthusiastic. So that's why husband and wife have to be together, because they're essentially co-creating their future. The reason one spouse or another doesn't want to come to your meetings is because they think it's going to be a boring meeting about financial planning, investments, insurance, technical things that they don't have any interest in. But believe me, they're very interested in co-creating their future together. In fact, I like to joke that couples who co-create their future together have a higher probability of having a future together. And then on the left side, it takes about 10 minutes to benchmark their current reality, and now it puts everything in perspective. So now you put your offer on the table to hire you and your team to create a comprehensive financial plan so that they can work through knowing exactly what their numbers should be so they can achieve their goals for the reasons that are important to them. And then you answer their questions, how much does it cost, and if they have any other specific questions about what they get, you have to answer those questions as well. I mean, in a nutshell, it puts you in a position to fully utilize your financial planning software. Yeah, I agree with you. Al says it's important not just to sound sincere, but to be sincere. On whom did you practice your scripts, right? So if you're talking about me when I got started, I practiced as much as I could in the real world, right? So I did practice with some of my colleagues in the office, so for example, I had 3 or 4 close friends. We sort of went through rookie training together, and I would buy breakfast if they would, we called it drill for skill over breakfast. And so I would give them some note cards with the most commonly asked questions that I got. Notice I'm not calling them objections, right? So what are the common questions? And I wanted to be so good. So I was sincere, but you really hit the nail on the head. The flip side of what you're asking is sometimes you can be sincere, but people don't believe you're sincere. You can be trustworthy, and sometimes people don't trust you. And that really frustrated me. It frustrated me to know I was delivering a better outcome than 99% of the sort of asset management, stockbroker, insurance agent kind of people who are out there. I mean, I early in my career, very early, embraced comprehensive financial planning. And most financial advisors today are still making a conscious decision to underserve their clients. They do financial planning light, a little investment management and insurance. They leave most things that people need to get their entire financial house in order undone. I mean, I don't know how else to say this because I believe this passionately. It is easy to steal the best clients from successful financial advisors. They're arrogant. They're complacent. They think they're entitled. They're just trying to ride 1% of AUM and do as little work as they possibly can. And their clients are ripe for being stolen, or as I prefer to say, rescued. All right, so if you show up with great communication skills and can clearly articulate a better offer, I call it a value promise, not a value proposition, right? So you'll be acquiring great clients left and right. What you're not doing is you're not looking for people who don't have any money who someday will have money. All right, that's a dumb business strategy. The smart business strategy is to go to people who have money right now and be effective enough at getting them to at least be willing to talk to you, and then taking them through a process that is clearly superior and building a stronger relationship that's also superior. So I agree with you. You have to be sincere. And I think what you can hear in my voice is I am passionate about truly comprehensive financial planning. I believe everybody deserves a financial roadmap and that everybody deserves to have a quality financial plan and a relationship with a true trusted advisor. And I also believe that even people who think they have that, they only think that because they don't know what else is available. Right, so they think it's normal to have somebody who sort of manages their money for a 1% markup and does very little else. They think that's normal, right? And when they discover something that's bigger and better and more valuable for the same price or even a lower price, they will switch. And maybe not all of them, but enough of them will switch that in a couple of years, let's call it 2 to 5 years, you can end up with 50 ideal clients who are paying you handsomely and live a great quality of life. All right, handful of questions. I'll try to wrap this up soon. Still a lot of you on the webinar. If you have to check out, I totally get it. All the questions will be answered on the recording. You're welcome. When meeting a potential client at an outside event, do you give your card or ask for their contact info or card, right? So I think I might have already covered this, Al, since you submitted this question. So you don't even need to carry cards. I really do not understand why people are still carrying business cards today. All right, so you've got a V card in your contact info in your contact. Everybody knows how to forward that, and if they don't know, they've got a smartphone. You can just show them how to do it. You can take their phone and forward their contact details to yourself. So, hey, I know it takes a lot of business cards to save a tree, but let's all save a tree and stop passing around, paper business cards and paper brochures and all that kind of crap. So, you just, again, if somebody wants to meet with you, they'll be happy to give you their contact information, however it's most expedient to give it to you. If they don't want to meet with you, it doesn't really matter how you ask for it, right? So I can have cards in my pocket. If I don't want to meet with you, if I don't want to hear from you, if I don't want to talk to you, I'm not going to give you my card, right? So, and if I don't want to meet or talk with you, it doesn't matter if you give me your card, right? So you first agree to have a conversation about something, and then you exchange contact details once there's actually a reason for that. So these are not just good communication skills, these are also just sort of simple, good business practices and habits. I find very often one of the things that we do is I listen to recordings of the advisors in our high-end training and coaching program doing all these things. They send me recordings of, the recording of the iPhone in their pocket when they're at a meeting, when they're at a charity event, at an outside event. They send me recordings of their follow-up calls, their phone consultations, their face-to-face meetings, their client meetings. And it is interesting to me how some relatively successful financial advisors, don't know how to schedule an appointment. It's awkward. So there is a process for doing that, and I've described that to you here. Yeah, Joe, if you only do asset management, the advisor roadmap is still helpful. So doing the financial roadmap, you'll still develop better people skills and better communication skills. So doing that will be valuable regardless of what your value promise is. I also hope that you will migrate. The problem with only doing asset management is it's a race to the bottom. So Charles Schwab does very good asset management now for free. Right, so it's 3 basis points, it's 5 basis points, it's 10 basis points. So I think you're going to continue to see the public is going to be less and less willing to pay 1% on top of 50 basis points for investment management. So, and the answer isn't, well, I have to get twice as much AUM to make the same income. So I believe that you will want to transition to doing something that's more valuable than just asset management. So yes, to answer your question directly, you'll learn a lot of skills that will help you acquire clients, and I hope you're also influenced to actually provide more value, which will make it easier for you to steal clients from other asset managers. So if you just do investment management and their current advisor just does investment management, now you're in some kind of a performance argument. I'll manage your money for a better return than they will, and that's tough business. All right, a couple more questions. Pardon me, I'm just getting a little drink to clear my throat. Yeah, what are 1 or 2 things you would suggest to leave clients with that wow feeling? So going back to, the reason we created values-based financial planning and have documented it so thoroughly is, it may sound a little self-serving to you, but we've had tens of thousands of advisors, over decades master this tool that's on your screen called the Financial Roadmap. This creates a wow feeling and an actual wow experience. When they're talking about what's important to them, when my wife, Ann, is listening to me talk about what's important to me, when I'm listening to her talk about what's important to her, it's remarkable how you can sit down with people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s and have them literally say out loud, wow, I've never heard you express it quite that way before. That's compelling. And then That values conversation, that shared sort of co-discovery of what's really important. I mentioned earlier, it's sort of this Zen-like, transformative, cathartic conversation, and it takes less than 20 minutes. And then to have them really get on the same page about their goals and a time frame and name them, I mean, and then to benchmark it, and then it's so simple. A lot of times they just say, wow, why do people complicate financial planning so much? I mean, so you've simplified it, you've made it a great experience, so to answer your question, it should be, your process should be visual, it should be experiential, it should be engaging, it should be interactive. The questions you ask have to be, big questions about significant things. All right, so again, it's one of the reasons why, everybody can enjoy co-creating their financial roadmap, being facilitated through this with you. I find everything is easier with wealthy people. You're welcome, you're welcome. Yeah, using the system, what do you call yourself? Good question. So we recommend that you call yourself, a financial advisor is okay. I hate the term wealth manager. I don't think there's anything sort of more ambiguous and confusing and less defined than the term wealth manager. So a lot of our advisors that we coach, they call themselves financial CEO, they call themselves financial organizer, they call themselves financial planner, sometimes generically financial advisor, which is essentially your follow-up question, Millicent. I'm not a big fan of the term financial coach. I understand where you're coming from with that. I'm just afraid it sort of makes them think, oh, you mean like a life coach? And it's sort of risky. Some people don't view that positively. So financial CEO, you'd never want to call yourself their personal CFO. It's more of a leadership role than a numbers crunching role. So hopefully that answers your question there. It's really more about what you do than what you call yourself. Okay, so currently this is the last question in the queue, so we'll call this last call for questions. So thank you, Bill. You're welcome. When talking to high net worth clients, I face challenges in getting them to see the need for financial planning, as they seem to have the attitude that they have made it, they've arrived, they have financial freedom. How do I get them to see the value to hire you? Well, I think the reason for that, William, is because you're prematurely talking about financial planning. All right? So that's what I meant by, when you go into these situations, when you're talking to a high net worth person at a cocktail party, what most financial advisors do is they tend to prematurely talk about the benefits of being married. So using that dating analogy again. So if you were to meet somebody at a cocktail party and you were to just sort of engage them in initial conversation, and they said to you, look, let me tell you why I would be a great husband or wife. All right, I'm going to be a good husband, a good mom. I'm going to be a good wife. And they started walking through, and you're thinking, I just met you. So why are you trying to convince me that I need to be married to you? So the same is true. Most financial advisors, way prematurely, they deliberately pivot the conversation. And I mentioned that when you listen to this webinar again, or you watch the training in our virtual training platform, I very deliberately talk about, you may be talking to someone for 15 or 20 minutes who agrees to have the next conversation with you, and they have yet to find out that you even are a financial advisor. So your goal is to be a human being that they would like to talk to again, not a financial advisor who's pitching the benefits of financial planning. So really sort of the benefits of becoming a client, they don't come out until that initial client meeting, right? So I'll go back to this visual here, all right? So this is where you're taking them through the financial roadmap, their values, their goals, their current situation. And what's happening is they're discovering through the interactive process, oh, it's obvious we don't have the kind of financial plan you're talking about. It's obvious there are big gaps in our financial house. We need to get our financial house in order. So it isn't that you're selling them a financial plan. It's that you're helping them discover that there are things that need to be done to achieve their goals, and some things that need to be done to protect the achievement of their goals. And so it's a checklist. This is why I'm so critical of people who just manage money. I mean, managing money is just one of dozens of things that need to be done to help somebody get their entire financial house in order. I was doing a workshop in Toronto a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this in general, and a gentleman raised his hand. He said, well, what if I already do comprehensive financial planning? You know, so what do I tell my existing clients? What are they upgrading to? What is it that I'm telling my existing clients that I do better if they're already getting financial planning, and prospective clients the same thing? And I just looked at him, and his name was Darren. I said, so Darren, you say you do comprehensive financial planning? And he said, yep, I do. I said, so how many questions do you think I'm going to have to ask you before we discover that what you call comprehensive financial planning is really not so comprehensive? And he smiled. He said, I think I'm about to find out. And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, so let me start with the easiest question I can think of. Do you make sure they have the right amount of property and casualty insurance? And he paused and he laughed, and the rest of the group sort of, they're a little nervous, laughed when he said, no, we don't sell property and casualty insurance. I said, so if you're really doing comprehensive financial planning, even if you don't actually sell the specific product, would you say it's an important part of financial planning that people have the right amount of auto insurance and the right amount of homeowners insurance and the right amount of liability insurance? What about fire, flood? You know, I don't know if you live somewhere where there are earthquakes. And I just went through, just off the top of my head, you know, just sort of a list of things that would fall under the umbrella of property and casualty insurance. He said, yeah, it's actually really important, because if they have an event where they did not have adequate insurance, then they could either have to pay a claim out of the money that was going to be used to achieve their goals. I said, you know, exactly. So how can you call yourself a financial planner and ignore property and casualty? And he immediately got it. He said, yep, I could get that done. I could coordinate with their P&C agent. I could have a relationship with a property and casualty agent. I don't have to be an expert in P&C insurance to make sure it gets done. All right, so just like you don't have to be an expert at portfolio management to make sure the portfolio is managed well by a professional portfolio manager, probably with one of these designations that you don't actually need. All right, so where's the designation for financial CEO and trusted advisor? All right, so I get that question a lot. Gee, Bill, what do you do if they ask you, well, are you a CFP? Well, my response, and I actually got this from my financial advisor, who is not a CFP, and probably, in my opinion, the best financial advisor in the entire world. And if anybody asked him that question, he just simply says, well, I don't really understand. I mean, I have CFPs who work for me, and they get it. You're the financial CEO, right? So you don't have to be a CFA or a CFP. I'm not criticizing those designations. I'm just saying that those designations do not make you a great financial advisor. There are people with all the designations on the screen right now who are currently doing a shitty job for their clients. There are people with these designations who are currently incarcerated. There are probably some people with these designations who are going to be incarcerated. All right, so a designation does not give you trust. All right, so you do have to make sure that your subject matter experts have the skills required to deliver on your client value promise. All right, but you know, so you get the point, where most people are not remotely close to truly having a comprehensive financial strategy where they're really getting their financial house in order, because most financial professionals don't deliver that. Even those who try, most of them are pretty shitty at it, all right? But those who are actually doing it are few and far between, all right? So the goal is to have brilliant communication skills and be a brilliant financial advisor. So you remember I talked about these things. Hey, it's great to have great technical skills, great to have a high IQ. You know, so if you've already got some designations, you don't have to drop them, and certainly you have to have your financial technology, and it's great if you have a great suite of products and good investment performance, and obviously I hope you provide good service and that you care. What I said is those are really the table stakes. What actually distinguishes the top advisors are the soft skills, because the hard skills are not only commoditized by human financial advisors, but they're also becoming more and more delivered by machines. So as machines continue to get better and better at managing money, you will see investment management continue to decline in perceived value by clients. They'll look at it and say, well, if a machine can do that for free, what's the incremental benefit to pay a human to do it for 50 to 150 basis points? All right, so, and honestly, if you don't think investment management is on the fast track to becoming free, you're just not paying attention. All right, so this isn't just some wild opinion that I just made up here. This is just, you know, the view of what is enormously obvious to anybody who's actually paying attention to what's happening in the financial services industry. Alrighty, so God, there's still lots of you on the call. If you had more questions, I would answer them, but I think we are, I think we're done. So I'll just do sort of a quick last call for questions. I'll remind you that you have an opportunity to become a member of our virtual community. It's very inexpensive and very, very robust. All right, so fast action bonuses, you get complimentary tuition to a very powerful webinar series. You get a copy of the book. You get a package of financial roadmaps, youradvisorroadmap.com/trust, and the fast action bonuses expire on next Wednesday at midnight Pacific time. Pacific time is U.S. Pacific time. So I'm just going to take one more quick look for questions. All right, so yep, another question came in under the wire here. Bill, does the other part of the answer lie in taking them up the value staircase to find out their goals now that they have achieved financial freedom? You know, not so much. All right, so yes, it's a great experience for them to do that, to have the values conversation. Part of it is just people look at it and they say, well, all things being equal, yeah, even if I do have I have a financial plan, you know, I've achieved all my financial goals, you know, life is dynamic. All right, so you'll see that the reason Alex, when you watch that training video, you'll see the reason that Alex, you know, wants he and his wife to make a choice about a financial advisor is he knows he's going to predecease his wife, Lisa. You know, he's older than her. Women live longer than men. Statistically, he's probably going to die before her. And he wants to know that all the financial details are going to be taken care of. You know, life is dynamic. Things change. You know, so this whole idea, well, I've achieved all my financial goals, therefore I don't need a financial plan. You know, a financial plan is no longer, you know, a document. It's not a leather-bound book or a binder, you know, that's static. I mean, a financial plan is an ongoing process. So if you're using, you know, eMoney or Money Guide Pro or, you know, Advice Center, Naviplan or Voyant or one of these great technologies, you know, you're not printing out a booklet anymore. So you're meeting with your clients on a regular basis to navigate the changes in the world, to navigate the changes in their situation, to navigate the changes of just their choices. You know, we had a goal to own a boat, but now we have 3 friends with boats, so we're just going to take that goal off our financial roadmap. You know, gee, we thought we would be financially independent by the time we were 62, but if we make some changes in our lifestyle, could we be financially independent now? Gee, we thought we were financially independent and we sold our company, but now that we understand the reality of technology and its implications on life expectancy, if we live another 20 or 30 years, will our money actually provide us the same lifestyle for the ever-extending life expectancy and longevity? All right, so these are sort of, there are like serious ongoing implications. You know, so once somebody has their financial house in order, they maintain a relationship with a financial CEO to keep their financial house in order and to navigate whatever the changes are in the world and in their personal life. All right, so people realize that. All right, so too many people try to sell financial planning as sort of like it's a product. It's a binder, it's a booklet. It's not. It's an ongoing service and experience, right? So that's why so many financial advisors are pivoting to a single flat fee and charging tens. Well, the highest I know one advisor we work with, as I mentioned earlier, Darren, charges $100,000 a year. right? So, and it's not like, oh, once your entire financial house is in perfect order, well, now I don't need to pay you anymore. You know, that's like saying, well, gee, the pool guy came and my pool is clean, so I can fire him, right? No, it's clean, and I pay him to keep it clean. You know, you don't look at the housekeeper at the end of the last time the housekeeper came and say, oh, the house is clean, so you don't ever have to show up again. All right, so a financial house is just like a physical house. It doesn't maintain itself. Somebody has to be on top of it and taking care of it, right? So I hope that answers your question, and I really appreciate how it's amazing how many of you've stayed on an hour and 15 minutes past the hour target time. You've been asking great questions. I think this just really speaks to the fact that you are the right kind of advisor. You care about helping your clients. You care about being a great communicator. It probably pains you to lose a client or not get hired by a prospect, knowing they're probably working with somebody who's not as good as you. So that's why you want to have great communication skills and be a great financial advisor. So I'll leave you with this thought. Your best investment is your untapped potential. I hope today has helped you tap some of that potential, as well as to inspire you to continue your journey to become the best financial advisor you can be and a brilliant communicator. It's my pleasure to be with you. Look forward to seeing you in the virtual community. Make it a great day.